Welcome to the Shadows, chummer. You can call me Mr. Johnson, and if I got a job for you. Well, as you know, my name is actually Tony, and this is my demonstrative speech on how to create a Shadowrun character. As you can see here in front of me, this is most of the equipment that you need to create a Shadowrun character. But you, of course, start out with a pencil, some paper, and some 6-sided dice. Now, there are other ways to play Shadowrun with 20-sided dice and the D&D dice that you use, but in my house, we only use the 6-sided dice. So, I guess I should probably explain to you exactly what Shadowrun is and whatnot before we get into actually creating a character for this demonstrated video. Shadowrun has been out since 1989. It is, again, a tabletop role-playing game that was created by FASA. After a few name changes, they are now being published out of Catalyst Game Labs, which you can find online at catalystgameslabs.com, where this DM screen or GM screen, depending upon which school of thought you come from, is where the storyteller behind the game actually tells the story and, of course, rolls his dice to make sure the rolls go the way they're supposed to. So, I should probably also explain to you a little bit of the history behind the game because, again, it's a bunch of books that have been thrown up on a table. It doesn't really tell anybody a whole lot. So, the Shadowrun universe is supposed to exist in our universe, and it ends up going off into a bit of a tangent to the current future that they have now. This game originally started out where the characters were in 2050, but going from 1st edition to 5th edition, we are now in 2070. So I'll give you a little bit of the history, and then we'll get into creating a character. Back in the 90s, the government and the corporations decided that they were going to work together, and they made the corporations more of people, just like we have now, where corporations are considered people and no longer entities, which kind of caused a few problems between things. As time went on, there were different riots and people got upset. But there are certain key points in the timeline that I wanted to get into. We're not supposed to use Wikipedia, but Wikipedia has a good example of this. You can also find the Shadowrun timeline in the actual source book, and this is the 5th edition source book. I have the 4 others that are out there. But after the 90s came through, we ended up with a terrible virus, which was called Vitus. Vitus is the virally induced toxic allergy syndrome, which, kind of like the super flu, ended up killing off a good 25% of the world's population. To make things even worse than that, just a year later, we ended up having mutations where certain subsets of the population changed from regular humans into elves and dwarfs, just like the elves and dwarfs that you would see in Lord of the Rings or Dungeons and Dragons. So that sounds pretty bad, depending upon which world you come from. But as things went on from there, it got even worse because, as you can see from some of the stuff here, this particular genre has not just metahumans, as they call them, the elves and the dwarves. We also have magic users, because everyone knows that elves tend to be magic users. So, in the year 2011, we ended up with a dragon being sighted over Mount Fuji, which was supposed to usher in the age of magic. This dragon came down and ate an elevated subway train full of people. At the same time, over here in the United States, the Native American population decided it was going to revolt against the U.S. government and create their own nation. This movement was called the Great spirit dance. This dance, of course, may have actually brought in the Age of Magic, but it's kind of hard to tell if the dance brought about the dragons or if the dragons brought about the dance. It's not really said. So, things are getting pretty bad. As we get into a few years later, we go through another change in the human population we have called goblinization. Goblinization turns a certain set of humans into orcs and trolls. And again, these are the same orcs and trolls that you would see in Lord of the Rings or Dungeons and Dragons. After we go from there, we end up with another round of plagues, which is more Vitus hitting the world, which is definitely setting up for a good setting where a lot of the normal everyday people have gotten tired of dealing with what they call megacorps now, and someone decided they wanted to do something, so they ended up walking into the shadows or running into the shadows. So we have Shadowrun. So as we're going to go and set up one of these characters here, again, there's a lot of information that goes into this, so we're going to make it a bit concise. First thing we have to pretty much figure out is, what is it that you want to be in this world? Just like in our world now, you can pick any profession that you'd like. Doesn't matter what it is. You can also pick any type of meta-human variant that you'd want to be, human and otherwise. There are also sub-meta-human races, but we're not going to go into those because, again, we only have a certain amount of time. First thing that we're going to need, of course, is we're going to need the core rulebook, which, again, we have here. We're going to set up, figure out what type of character that we want. Except for that one. Depending upon the type of character that you'd like to make, they have a certain way of creating these characters. Now, different house rules call for different ways, but of course the core rulebook of the 5th edition suggests using the priority system. What exactly do you define as being more important to you? There's money, whether or not you want to be a human or a non-human, whether or not you want to have magic, and of course how many points you'd like to put into your character. So, what are these points for and where do they go? Well, each of the characters, depending upon what you are, have different bonuses and hindrances. For example, being a troll, which ends up being anywhere between 12 and 15 feet, of course you're going to be very strong and you're going to be able to take a lot of damage, but you're not going to move so fast. Being an elf, you're going to be slightly taller, you're going to move very fast, but you're going to end up not being able to take enough damage. So, depending upon what you want to play and how you want to play it, would essentially tell you what type of character you'd like to be. So, as we go through the information here, like I said, there is a lot. We have to go through and see what we have here. We have specific stats that need to be filled out as we're creating this character, and they are based on things such as body, agility, quickness, intuition instead of intelligence, reaction, charisma, and of course, again, depending on what you decide as your priority during your building system will essentially tell you what type of character you end up with and how many points you have to spend. Now, what I can't show you here are all of the dice rolls that essentially are part of creating this character. But I can show you some of the finished product and what they are, what they do. So, on this nice little game screen here, and again, this is where the game master will sit behind and make sure that no one dies during the game. You have this person here who is an orc. You can tell by the pointy ears He is considered a street samurai. A street samurai is someone who has cybernetics and a sword. Hence the samurai also uses guns. Over here we have the troll that we were discussing before. What is hard to tell in this picture is that this is actually a troll mage. Yes, they are possible. We also have a Native American shaman, which is one of the subclasses that I was telling you about. We have a dwarf here, and of course we have our humans. Once you've got all your stats together and you've got them written down on the paper, there are several other things that you need to put together to basically flesh out your character. As with any person in our world or other, you have to have different people that you talk to, different contacts. For example, at the beginning of this, I had said that my name was Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson is a fixer in the game, and this is a person that you would go to get your jobs from the shadows. That can be considered a personal contact or a business contact. Just about any other profession in the world can be considered as a contact. You'd also have to choose the type of lifestyle that you'd like to have. Again, depending upon what you chose in the priority system, if your lifestyle is towards the low end, of course, you are either living on the streets or living in a very small apartment. On the upside, you could be living in a penthouse next to a rock star. This also tells you, of course, how much money that you get based on the priority system. You could be scraping by, just like you're living in the apartment, or as a rock star making millions and millions of dollars. Again, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that goes along into creating a character in this game, a lot of which I can't really show because we don't have that much time. But your finished character will, at times, end up with stats like these, and each one of these pages represents different aspects of your character. This side, of course, would be your main page with all of the different attributes that you have, some of your items. If you are a street samurai, over here you can have your cybernetics. As a magician or a shaman, you end up with your magic skills. And with some of the other characters, such as a rigger or a decker, which I hadn't mentioned yet, a rigger is a person that you can actually see here that sits in a car or any other type of vehicle and controls drones electronically. You also have deckers, which are basically the 21st century equivalent of our hackers now. They hack the net and make sure that the security systems are then disabled. But this concludes my demonstrative presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I have a lot of books for this. Have a good day.